Oh, this is my biting blade.
Kill me.
And this is my gatito blade.
Gatito blade.
Lord Frieza.
What?
Did you know, Lord Frieza, that the red hair wonder has a twin brother? And rumor has it that he may just be as strong as his brother in single combat.
Well, if these rumors are true, which I can see them being true considering that I've fought against this mighty red-haired wonder before, then I cannot allow his twin brother to exist in my universe, the universe that I will one day control. Prepare the Armata and prepare for battle!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all cringe aside, we gotta talk about this in chapter One Piece, chapter 1138. We've been focused on the mural. Putting it mildly. That's putting it like really mildly. Truth be told, there is a lot more to come for the mural. Yes, I'm saying it again. There is more to come for the mural. I'm not done. That mural is gonna be referenced to for a long time, probably until we get the entire Void Century flashback. That's how important that mural is. It is arguably the best panel, the best double page spread in One Piece history. However, as a result, we're forgetting other important details about this chapter.
Finally!
We cannot ignore Shamrock, because you can argue that Shamrock showcasing his power in this latest chapter One Piece may be indicative of what Shanks can do in the very near future of the series. What can we, if at all, can we glean anything from the Cerberus ability that Shamrock showcased in this latest chapter One Piece? And there are some things we kind of can infer. And here's the first thing. As far as we know, this is a very important detail here. As far as we know, the Cerberus ability, which has the Hagoromo scarf around it, the black one, this confirms in some way that this is a Devil Fruit power. However, in what way exactly, we don't know, and the reason why is simple, because the way the ability is announced, it's not announced as the dog fruit mythical model Cerberus, it just says Cerberus. Who is this a one-to-one to? A one-to-one to? The Five Elders. When we get the Planetfall chapter and we have all the Five Elders powers introduced, they are not introduced as mythical Zoans. It's simply the Hokai. It's simply the Itsumade. It's simply the Sandworm. We do not get the actual Zoan ability. We don't get the Jupiter worm fruit mythical model Sandworm, model Dune Worm. That does not happen. If we follow one for one with the Five Elders, which we should in this case here, and the reason being is because when you see the ability that Shamrock is using, there's also a notation to this black fire, this Amaterasu fire. Now, maybe it's, let's say, another color, like a dark purple or a dark navy blue, whatever. But the idea is that this fire is also synonymous with the Elders, because we see it a few times when the Elders were going crazy on Agate Island. Gunko does showcase some of that black fire stuff too, when she sets up some of her moves against Loki, but we actually have the notation of her powers. We actually get the confirmation that her powers are the arrow fruit. Right now, that does not exist for Shamrock. So the correlation between the Elders and Shamrock's ability on his sword, I think, are there. They are absolutely there. Which means that we can't argue, we cannot necessarily rule out the possibility that there is a genuine Cerberus model devil fruit for the dog fruit that still exists somewhere out there in the ecosystem. Which means that, yes, the Blackbeard, undeniably, the Blackbeard Cerberus video theories have taken a hit, a stab right to the gut. And if you're wondering, yes, this is metal, kids. Do not mess around metal. This is the real deal. You hear that? Be careful. Now, I'm a responsible adult.
Are you sure about that?
But even though the Blackbeard Cerberus theories are taking a big hit, and I certainly want to bank on that anymore, that doesn't mean that they're dead. That all being said though, there's a good chance here, a very strong chance here, that this sword is not in the same vein as Fankfried, the sword that belongs to Spandam. Spandam in CP9 had a sword that could transform into an elephant called Funkfried or Fankfried. And in a very similar way to how we see Fankfried operate, is also in a very similar way to how we see the Cerberus Saber of Shamrock operate. in a very similar way, to where we see like the entire elephant at times with Fangfried, where we see like the entire Cerberus pop out of Shamrock's sword. But keep in mind that at some points we do see the sword kind of gets smaller when he actually calls back the Cerberus, because Loki's about to get deaded. And in the Viz Media translation, he says he can't handle being run through all those swords. So the power of these Cerberus missile hounds is it's off the charts. If someone like Loki is saying, I can't handle this, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that, like a Pokeball, as these hound missiles are swerving incoming to stab Loki, we do see Shamrock recall the rest of the Cerberus into his sword, and his sword was kind of smaller and then returns to size. But that being said, you could argue that it is in a similar vein to Vegapunk infusing a sword with a devil fruit. Possible. But at the same time, why would Vegapunk ever do that? Particularly when, as far as we know, he only visited the Holy Land once, and that was to accept a peace prize for his inventions, which was shown in the Mads cover story. So while it makes sense that we would see other people across the blue sea have weapons that have powers in them, it doesn't make that much sense for a celestial dragon like Shamrock to have one inside of his sword. And on top of that, it'd be a mythical Zoan. Mythical Zoans are extremely rare. And as far as we know, according to Kizaru's own words way back when during Marineford, mythical Zoans are even rarer than Logia abilities. So based on that statement, in principle, there are less mythical Zoans in the story than there are Logia abilities in the story. If you were to include every elder as a actual Duffer user, then they would be more mythical Zoans, thereby retconning Kizaru's statement. We can't necessarily say that they are genuinely mythical devil fruit users. And the same thing I think applies to Shamrock, which means I would argue that Shamrock's power, I think in some way does come from Emu. In the same way that Emu probably gave Saturn his abilities and then could take them away when he thought that Saturn was unfit to be a Gorosei member because of his failures on an island and allowing the Joy Boy to escape, quote unquote Joy Boy. I think it's in the same vein as the sword, where Emu could, if he wanted to, remove the powers of the Cerberus from the sword, because Emu was the one that implanted the power into the sword in the first place. That's what I think. And this then ties around to Shanks. And the reason why is simple, because Shanks does have a Meito, a named Fame Blade. At this point in time, we don't know what kind of grade, but it is a superior quality named sword. And the name of the sword is Griffin. So if Shamrock has a Cerberus blade, and Cerberus known as the guard dog of Hades, the guard dog of Hell, which is pretty damn fitting for the captain, the commander of the Holy Knights. You can argue that the Holy Knights being the greatest defense force, you can argue that the Holy Land has. Based on the themes, if we take Shamrock and one-to-one to Shanks, are some of these themes parallel? Yes, and I have done videos in the past, over here, boom, I've done videos in the past talking about the importance of the Griffin and Shanks, where essentially, in some mythologies, Griffins are seen as the king of all beasts. There is no creature on the planet that is superior than a Griffin. And Griffins are also known to lay their eggs in gold mines. And I've always kind of had that be synonymous with the idea that Shanks is someone who is waiting for the right time to find the right person to get the One Piece treasure. Maybe he himself says he wants to claim it, but I think in reality, he is there to guard it, to make sure that the right person is there to get it, which in this case would be Luffy. He is the Griffin that guards the treasure. He is the person that I think guards the One Piece. That's how I've kind of viewed Shanks for a long time now. And the way I'd see is that you look at his actions where he does try to mediate a lot of stability in the new world, the most chaotic part of the world that not even the world government, with all their forces and all their men, sounds like the beginning of a nursery rhyme, but with all of their personnel, the world government have not been able to conquer, to take over the new world, because the new world is Yonko territory. However, the Yonko, for the most part of the story, have been at odds with one another. And someone like Shanks, we've seen a few times, tried to play the role of mediator, tried to play the role of maintaining balance and peace, whether it be at Marineford, talking to Whitebeard, trying to go to Wano country to head off Blackbeard from taking out the Young Bucks that just took out Kaido and Big Mom, so on and so forth. Shanks has been someone that has tried to maintain stability in the area until the time was right. and that time is probably now. So the themes between Shanks guarding the treasure and then Shamrock being the guard dog of the Holy Land, I think, are there. And you can argue, if you want to take anime and movies as canon, which you should never really do. Movies are one thing where the author has to kind of like denote to things being canon in the movie, and in Film Red and in Strong World, things are canon for sure, but things are not canon, obviously. And then two is that for the anime, they are interpretations of the canon material of the manga. They can get things wrong, but that doesn't mean they can't be fire. And what's undeniably fire is what we saw in Film Red when Luffy and Shanks do their combo move to take out the big demon Tom Musica, where you see Luffy sort of lion fisting Lionel, leader of the Thundercats, and then you see a sort of hawk / griffin on Shanks' sword, and he thrust like it was a crazy Musa move. In fact, they do have a Film Red Shanks in Pirate Warriors 4 with that exact same sort of griffin move. And then the anime, what was undeniably incredible was before Kid gets the divine departure, we see a griffin. We see a hockey, red lightning, oared out griffin sort of gallop towards Kid, and Kid before he gets annihilated with the divine departure. So there are some signs that there is something unique about the steel in Shanks' sword, but only really for the anime, not for the manga. Whether or not that means that he has a genuine devil fruit in his sword has yet to be seen. But I think it is possible, I think it's very possible actually, that Shanks may have some things about his power or techniques that relate to griffins. I think that is very possible. Right now, what we do know about Shanks' powers, though, is that Shanks does have the ability to cancel out Future Sight with his own Conqueror's Hockey Future Sight nullification that is confirmed, it is canon in the Volume 4 billion. Then he has the Wi-Fi Hockey feat. He has insane attack power to cut Kid down in a single swing, and Killer extra fives on the side, and of course, as of late, has comparable hockey to Joy Boy. So the moment that we see with the 5 elders being blown back with the Ameth hockey knot is also in parallel a Shanks hockey feat too, because the Giants are confused if it was or was not stronger than what Shanks can output. That's a fact. And of course, we can't forget about the fact that he was able to see about 10 seconds into the future before Kid destroyed his armada. So most of the things that we see with Shanks' ability spectrum are heavily focused on hockey. Hockey is Shanks' prima, his first and foremost apex ability. Whether it be word of mouth or in the story itself, it's been hockey related. Ever since the first Sky Split that we saw in the pre-time skip with Whitebeard and Shanks, I think it's safe to say that most One Piece fans view Shanks as predominantly a hockey Giga Chad. A devil fruit in the mix is interesting as hell, because there's a good chance that there's no Emu tinkering with Shanks' Griffin sword, and if the sword can transform into a Griffin, then it would have to be a Vegapunk style thing going on here, where his sword has consumed a mythical zone ability. Unless Emu had granted the power of Shamrock's sword a long time before Shamrock could wield that sword. So the Cerberus power was already embedded into Shamrock's sword before Shamrock even had the sword. Like some sort of legacy weapon, like some kind of Zelda Master Sword, but it's for the Holy Land. And then in Shanks' case, that could apply for him too. And instead of one Master Sword, one legacy weapon, there are two, maybe even three, and Garling wields the third one. So just like with Loki and his powers, it could be related to his family's inheritance, which are tied to likely Emu, where Emu could have granted all of these swords unique abilities, and Shanks' sword is one of these swords. Referring to chapter 1138, Shamrock clarifies that his family and Shanks are strange, but Shanks did come to the Holy Land at one point in time in the past. So this could mean that Griffin is some sort of inheritance that Shanks may have attained when he went to the Holy Land that one time and then he left. And if that's the case, then you can argue, okay, fine, there is a chance where Emu's power, if it is Emu, there could be a chance here that there is a Griffin, a Griffin ability that is fused, melded into his saber. But this is not something I'm betting on at all. Whether it be Rubet, whether it be Stake or DraftKings or even the Vegas Strip, this is not something I'm putting any money on at all. Without a doubt, what's way more likely is that Stabs has a genuine, clearly, a genuine power in his sword, but it's not a devil power in the same way as a traditional power like what we see with Fangfried, Spandam Swords, or even the dog cannon that we see in Alabasta that belonged to Mr. 4, I believe. And with Shanks, I'm leaning heavily towards the idea that his sword has no unique ability and is simply a famed blade, whether it be a great grade or supreme grade, it's simply that. I think that Shanks may have, again, techniques that refer to griffins, but he himself does not actually have a griffin. He could have some sort of crazy hockey attack, hockey projectile that he does refer to a griffin in some way, like Griffin Talon or a Griffin Wing or a Griffin Strike. And then the hockey itself could mimic what we see in the episode where he takes out Kid. But I don't see an actual devil fruit power be embedded into the sword. I'll be very surprised if that was the case. Super surprised. I think most of us see the entire Red Pirate crew as the opposite of the Blackbeard Pirates. BB's crew, all of them have power users. But in Shanks' crew, you can argue none of them have powers. That'd be the idea, that'd be the take. So on that note, I can understand why there is like a desire to kind of correlate Shamrock and Shanks, but I think, again, it just goes as far as the aesthetic of certain techniques, or what Shanks calls them, and that's probably it. If we go further than that, I'll be kind of surprised. Like, wait, you actually have a genuine griffin, or this sword had the power of Emu into it long ago? If that happens, fair enough, I'm wrong. But now you know where I stand. And where do you stand on the subject matter at hand? If you enjoy your boys' video content, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell to join the notification squad. I'll catch you guys and gals on the flip side.
See you. Bye-bye.